Hello and welcome to another TLDR Brexit Explained video. In this one, we're going to be taking a look at how the new EU-UK trade agreement affects one of the most fraught parts of the Brexit process, the Northern Irish border. Throughout negotiations, both sides were keen to ensure that there was no hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, for obvious historic reasons. Johnson was also keen to prevent there being a border between Northern Ireland and Great Britain, with him fearing that such a border could damage the Union. So in this video, we're going to discuss what's happening on the Irish border in the light of this new Brexit deal, and if there's set to be a hard border anywhere in this region. We're making this video today because it was requested by our Patreon backers. If you want to have your say and contribute to future videos, then be sure to back us on Patreon. In return for your donations, you get a whole bunch of perks, so click the link in the description to learn more. Borders are always complicated, especially when it comes to the island of Ireland, so we're going to start off with the hard stuff and then slowly get easier. We're going to start by explaining how the Irish sea border was going to work under the Northern Ireland Protocol, then explain how Michael Gove and Marco Sesovic's reinterpretation of the protocol made things a bit easier, and then finally we're going to explain how the new UK-EU trade agreement makes things even easier. So, under the original Northern Ireland Protocol, Northern Ireland was set to remain in the EU's customs territory even post-Brexit. By default, this meant that any goods going from Great Britain to Northern Ireland would be entering the EU's customs territory, and therefore have to pay the EU's customs duties. This is because of the fear that if goods entered Northern Ireland tariff-free, because it's part of the UK, then if there was no Irish border, people could just smuggle it into the Republic of Ireland and the rest of the EU without ever paying tariffs or customs duties. By charging tariffs on entry into Northern Ireland, there's no risk of this workaround, and no need for a hard Irish border. If the goods didn't end up leaving Northern Ireland, importers would then be able to claim back the customs duties from the UK government. The Northern Ireland Joint Committee, made up of UK and EU officials, could also designate certain goods as not at risk of being sold in the EU, and as such, these goods wouldn't require customs declarations. For goods going the other way around, from Northern Ireland to Great Britain, because they're technically leaving the EU's customs territory, they would need a special form called an exit summary declaration. So that's how things stood according to the withdrawal agreement. Then in early December, after the whole internal market bill shenanigans, Michael Gove and Marco Sesovic, the two chairs of the Northern Ireland Joint Committee, came to an agreed reinterpretation of the protocol. For goods moving from Great Britain into Northern Ireland, there will be a new trusted trader scheme. Basically, most big importers, like say Tesco, will be designated as trusted traders, which would mean that their goods wouldn't be considered at risk, and therefore they require no customs paperwork. It was also agreed that for goods going from Northern Ireland into Great Britain, there would be no need for exit summary declarations, unless they fell into one of the following categories. This new interpretation of the Northern Ireland Protocol made things a fair bit easier on the border, but the UK-EU trade deal makes things even easier. That's because it's a free trade agreement, so there's no tariffs or quotas in place between the EU and UK, cleaning this up even further. With a free trade agreement, the vast majority of goods originating in the UK won't be considered at risk, because there's no financial advantage of sneaking goods that originate in the UK into the EU via Northern Ireland. If there's no tariffs to pay, why would you even bother sneaking your goods about? Ultimately then, the deal makes this whole process and this diagram much simpler, requiring only looser borders and checks. However, free trade doesn't mean that there doesn't have to be a border at all. That's because we still need borders to solve the problem of third country goods, which are goods originating from different countries. For example, imagine the UK strikes a free trade agreement with Australia. The EU doesn't currently have a free trade agreement with Australia, although they are currently negotiating one. So, hypothetically, if an Australian exporter wants to sell kangaroo meat in France, then he'd have to pay EU tariffs. However, he could export his kangaroo meat tariff-free to Great Britain and then sneak it into France via Northern Ireland, completely tariff-free. So to solve this problem, these sorts of third country goods require rules of origin declarations, which basically say this kangaroo meat comes from Australia, which means that when it tries to get into the EU, EU tariffs will still apply. The deal that the UK and EU reached makes this rule of origin stuff much easier as well. Firstly, they've got a pretty loose definition of origin. The deal states that products made with non-UK parts can still count as originating in the UK. For example, if I made a kangaroo meat pie with that imported kangaroo, then I could sell it as a British product tariff-free in the EU. Secondly, the deal has a provision allowing the other party to randomly spot check the other's rules of origin certificates. Basically, if the EU doesn't trust that the company sneaking kangaroo meat out of Great Britain is doing its rule of origin checks properly, thereby letting illegal kangaroo meat into the EU single market, it can request information from that company about its rule of origin declarations. Thirdly, the deal has a resolution mechanism for any rules of origin disputes called the Common Partnership Committee. Basically, if the EU accuses the UK of not properly checking declarations in the Irish Sea and therefore letting large quantities of illegal kangaroo meat into the EU, then it can complain to this committee. By the way, this deal has a lot of committees for this kind of thing. Credit for that graphic goes to Anton Spisak, who's a great person to follow on Twitter if you're a real Brexit nerd. Anyway, fourthly, this deal grants a 1-year grace period for businesses in order to sort out their rule of origin declarations. And finally, this deal also includes an agreement on data sharing in order to limit customs fraud. So to sum up, this deal means no tariffs, which means that less goods are deemed at risk, which means less customs friction for Great Britain-Northern Ireland trade. It also provides a nice framework for rules of origin declarations, including a dispute resolution mechanism and a grace period to allow businesses to sort their feet out. All good stuff. So that's the customs stuff done. The other thing worth talking about is SPS, which stands for Sanitary and Phytosanitary Standards, which are essentially the regulations regarding any live animals or animal products. Basically, Northern Ireland will keep EU SPS rules, because the island of Ireland will be treated as one single phytosanitary zone, in order to avoid checks on the Irish border. The island of Ireland was already treated as a single SPS zone before Brexit, but before, that basically just meant checking sheep to see if they had any diseases. Again, let's start with the Northern Ireland Protocol. Originally, any SPS product would have to go through one of 4 Northern Ireland ports, where an SPS check would be carried out. And from the 1st of January, certain goods will be banned from moving into Northern Ireland, while unrestricted SPS products would require an export health certificate. Again, Gove and Sesevic's reinterpretation of the Northern Ireland Protocol made things easier. Under that new interpretation, there will be an authorised traders scheme for Northern Irish supermarkets. These authorised traders would get a 3-month grace period from January 1st up until April 1st, where they wouldn't need these EHCs. There would also be a 6-month grace period for these animal products which can be exported into Northern Ireland until mid-2021.
So you saved the soft sausage and the hard sausage.
Well, I think it's fair to say that when it comes to making sure that sausages can move across the Irish Sea, that this is a win for the people of Northern Ireland, a win for our supermarkets, but above all, it's a win for Maroš Šefčovič. He is the sausage king.
So together, Michael Gove and
the sausage king
were able to make it possible to move sausages and other goods from the UK to Northern Ireland. However, if you don't think that Šefčovič is
the sausage king,
and you think you know who the real
sausage king
is, maybe it's even yourself, then you can buy an official TLDR
the sausage king
t-shirt to prove it. The link to that's in the description. Yes, that is a real product. Anyway, what does this new trade deal have to say about SPS? Well, conspicuously little. First thing to note is there's no equivalence, which is basically when both sides recognise each other's standards and certifications. In recent EU trade deals, like CETA, you'll see this as the first thing under SPS. In the UK deal, it's missing, and it's probably because the UK wants to be able to set its own SPS regime, and equivalence makes this harder to do. It's also the responsibility of the exporting party to make sure that exports are up to the importing party's standards. Basically, it's the UK's job to make sure that SPS checks done in Northern Ireland are sufficient. Finally, it's worth noting this passage, which says that any SPS check should have minimum effect on trade, which basically sounds like an excuse just to do the minimum level checks. At the moment, minimal checks are fine, because the UK hasn't really diverged from the EU's SPS standards just yet. However, if the UK does decide to diverge in the future, then they'll have to upgrade the SPS infrastructure in Northern Ireland, making the Irish Sea a bit more bordery. Also, everyone's fine with light touch checks until they're not. What we mean by this is that the EU won't mind minimal checks until some British disease sneaks into EU cow herds via Northern Ireland, or vice versa. Then they'll want proper checks, which would require a hardening of the Irish Sea border. The long and short of it is that these SPS provisions are very thin, which is fine for now, but could lead to the Irish Sea border becoming a lot harder in the future. Anyway, that's how things shake out at the moment. There's currently no need for a hard border on the island of Ireland, thanks to the agreements and deals that have been reached. But despite Johnson's insistence, there are some checks between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Checks which, if stepped up in the future, could lead to a significant border within the UK. What do you think though? Is this a reasonable compromise? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that's in the description.